The studio was darker than most late-night sets, deliberately minimalist, drawing attention to one thing only. John Oliver stood in front of his iconic desk, already mid-monologue, delivering one of his signature deep dives, laced with sarcasm and self-righteous liberal charm. And now, because someone in the universe clearly lost a bet, he declared, we've invited the youngest press secretary in American history. She's 27, she loves Trump, and somehow she's not a parody character. Please welcome Karoline Leavitt. The audience chuckled. It wasn't malicious, just smug. That brand of humor only works if everyone believes the guest will be outmatched. But then Karoline walked in. Tailored white blazer, sharp gaze, and an expression that said, I know exactly what game you're playing, and I'm not afraid of it. She sat down, crossed one leg over the other, and smiled politely. Welcome to the show, John began. I assume you've been briefed on our policy of merciless fact-checking and British sarcasm, Karoline replied without missing a beat. I've been in the White House, John. I'm used to media that thinks jokes are arguments. Laughter, louder than expected. Not all ironic. John chuckled. Fair enough. Let's start with the basics. You support Donald Trump. Still, why? She tilted her head slightly. Because he didn't run for elite approval. He ran for the truck driver, the mom working 2 jobs, the veteran drowning in bureaucracy, and he did more for them than anyone in that studio audience probably wants to admit. The audience hushed. The room shifted. Oliver leaned in. But you're young, educated, articulate, basically the exact kind of person his base thinks is part of the problem. Don't you find that ironic? Karoline didn't flinch. You mean because I speak in full sentences and read policy documents? That's not a liberal monopoly, John. It's called being prepared. Scattered claps, a few audible dams. Oliver smiled but tightened his grip on the desk. He wasn't used to this kind of balance. All right, he said, flipping a note card. Let's talk election denialism, shall we? Your party lost in 2020. Then they cried foul. Then they blamed voting machines. Then they blamed Hugo Chavez. Is this your definition of reality? Karoline's eyes narrowed. My definition of reality, John, is that the institutions that claim to defend democracy are often the first to suppress dissent, asking questions, demanding transparency. That used to be liberal values. Now it gets you labeled a threat to national security. A pause, not defensiveness, calculation. And it worked. Oliver raised a hand theatrically. So you're saying it's okay to just make things up if it supports your team? Karoline shot back. No, I'm saying your team made up Russian collusion for 2 years, and nobody at CNN lost their job. When we ask questions, it's a threat. When you do it, it is journalism. A stunned silence, then a few claps, then more. John glanced at the camera. Well, this is going better than I thought. For you. Karoline leaned forward slightly. I didn't come to win your applause, John. I came to prove your applause isn't necessary. And just like that, the first 10 minutes of the interview, designed to humiliate, had turned into a strategic battleground where Karoline Leavitt was already drawing blood. John Oliver took a slow breath. Karoline Leavitt had come prepared. That much was clear. Every jab he launched, she turned into a clean counterstrike. Every sarcastic remark found itself disarmed by logic wrapped in poise. It wasn't just unusual, it was unsettling. For him, and clearly for the audience. Still he pressed on, flipping to the next cue card like a fencer readying a new blade. All right, he said. Let's talk climate. You've downplayed it. You've opposed green initiatives. You support a man who called it a hoax. My question is, how do you sleep at night knowing penguins are dying because of you? Laughter. Karoline didn't even blink. I sleep well knowing I support energy independence, she replied coolly. I sleep well knowing I supported American jobs over climate treaties written by unelected foreign bureaucrats. And I sleep well because I don't think shaming working-class people for driving trucks is the path to saving the planet. Oliver tried to laugh, but it came out forced. Sure, he said, but you do believe climate change is real, right? Karoline nodded slowly. Yes, But I also believe solutions should be based on science and economics. You don't bankrupt a nation on TikTok panic. You innovate, you adapt. You don't tax a farmer in Ohio to impress a think tank in Brussels. Some audience members clapped, nervously at first, then more confidently. Oliver raised a brow. So, no to carbon taxes, yes to fossil fuels, and we're just hoping Elon saves us? Karoline smiled. No, I'm saying we don't cripple America while China opens a new coal plant every 2 weeks. If the planet's on fire, maybe we should start where the smoke is actually coming from. The applause now wasn't reluctant. It was real. John leaned back, refocused. All right, he said sharply. Let's talk gender. You've made headlines, or at least Twitter mobs, by saying there are two genders. Do you really think that's a hill worth dying on in 2025? Karoline didn't hesitate. No one's dying, John, she said. They're just mad that I won't play along. Facts don't care about feelings. If you want to wear a dress and call yourself whatever you want, go ahead. But don't expect the federal government, public schools, or the military to restructure reality for your identity crisis. A loud gasp from the audience, then silence. John's tone turned colder. That's incredibly dismissive, she shot back calmly. What's dismissive is pretending confused children need hormones instead of help. What's dismissive is treating women's sports as a political experiment. Biology isn't bigotry, and refusing to say that isn't compassion, it's cowardice. A few claps, one whistle, a small thank you from somewhere in the crowd. Even John looked rattled. His usual follow-up joke didn't come, but he wasn't finished. Not yet. He flipped one more card. Let's end in this. January 6th. Do you condone it? Karoline's face went still. I condemn violence, period. But I also condemn the media's double standards. BLM riots burned cities and got murals. One riot at the Capitol, which I didn't support, and suddenly every Trump voter's a terrorist? The audience tensed. The line was bold and deliberate. I served in the White House. I believe in law and order, but I also believe justice isn't selective. If you're going to arrest a guy in a MAGA hat, you better arrest the ones who torched police stations too. John blinked. The camera cut to the audience. Faces once smug were now simply quiet. Karoline leaned in, voice steady. You wanted to paint me as an extremist, but the truth is... I'm the center now. You moved left. I stayed sane. She sat back, confident, unbothered. John glanced down at his cards, then back at her. You do realize none of what you said tonight will get you invited to brunch in Brooklyn ever again, right? She smirked. I wasn't invited in the first place. And the crowd, despite themselves, broke into applause. The taping ended with polite applause, but not the smug, knowing kind John Oliver's audience was famous for. This applause was conflicted, cautious. The crowd had come expecting a takedown. What they got was a debate, and not just any debate, a one-sided demonstration in calm, calculated dominance. Backstage, John sat in his swivel chair, head slightly lowered, rewatching segments on a studio monitor. One by one, Karoline's lines hit harder in replay. Biology isn't bigotry. You don't tax a farmer to impress a think tank in Brussels. I didn't come to win your applause. I came to prove your applause isn't necessary. He took a long sip of water and muttered to himself. That was brutal. A producer leaned in. Twitter's melting down already. He turned his gaze to his phone. The feed was chaos. Progressive influencers tried to do damage control. John was too soft. She used facts like a weapon. That's the danger of polished extremism. I hate everything she stands for, but she handled herself better than any GOP guest I've ever seen. Conservative commentators were euphoric. Karoline just red-pilled half of Manhattan. When truth meets smug sarcasm, truth wins. She walked into the lion's den and walked out holding its mane. Clips flooded TikTok and YouTube. One moment in particular, Karoline calmly declaring, "You moved left, I stayed sane." Hit 5 million views in under 3 hours. The caption read, "The most dangerous sentence of boredom, because it's true." Later that night, Caroline sat in a quiet black SUV, headed back to her hotel. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Fox wanted her back. Joe Rogan's team had reached out. Elon Musk had reposted her quote with a fire emoji. Even a left-leaning college invited her to debate live. If she was brave enough, the invite said. She laughed. Brave enough, she muttered. I just went on John Oliver and left without a scratch. Her comms director, seated next to her, was still stunned. You didn't just win, Caroline. You changed the narrative. And she had. In an era where late-night comedy was often a sermon, she had turned the altar into a courtroom and delivered the closing argument no one could forget.